Hello everyone, welcome to Power Playground. This is your host Michael, and today I'm going to be going over 11 3D printers that are some of the cheapest that I've been able to find on the web, or at least on AliExpress. There might be cheaper ones at other websites, but I primarily buy goods overseas on AliExpress and some other places you can go, like GearBest and Banggood. I've had some issues with Banggood in the past, so I typically am a little weary on that myself. First off, I'm going to go over a couple printers that you probably should avoid. I'm going to tell you why you should avoid these particular printers here. There are 4 factors you should be primarily looking at when getting a 3D printer. One should be the frame, what it's built out of and how it's constructed. Another one should be is if it has a heated bed or not. Third one should be if it has an LCD screen. You would definitely want an LCD screen in your printer. 99% of printers that sell today do have an LCD screen. The final one, which is very important, is you want to make sure it has a stable Z-axis. Now let's go ahead and get into these printers here. So this one is it's a Prusa i3 clone. There are many like it on the site. This one is really cheap, around $129.08, shipped to United States from China. Of course, you get China Post Air, 18 to 35 days. Now, at some point in the future, I do want to go over buying stuff from AliExpress, because it's definitely a challenge, and you have to know what to look for when you're buying goods off of this website, or you will get burned, or you will wait an excruciating amount of time. So again, that'll be for another video for another day. But I'm just going to get right into this printer and why you should avoid it. Now, first off, I don't know if you can notice this, but I can kind of pick this out pretty easily here. I believe this frame is made out of wood, if I'm not mistaken, like a laser cut wood. Let's zoom in here. Yeah, you can definitely see the grain on the sides. Sorry about the jiggle. I have no clue why the website's doing that. It's some weird script issue. So yeah, you can definitely tell at least this frame is made out of wood. Of course, the original Prusas, I believe, had that wooden frame, but they of course, I think they switched some sort of plastic, or they might have metal now, if I'm not mistaken. That's definitely a big con. Now, another thing I do see is the couplers for the Z motors. Now, going into Z stability, it looks like, yeah, you can kind of notice it here. All the coupling is this piece of plastic. It's almost like a shrink wrap or heat shrink, a little thicker, of course, but that is very bad because that can twist, which can cause Z instability, inaccuracy, what have you. The shafts are otherwise good. They look like they're 8mm, which is fine for this. But yeah, power supply, probably some cheap unit. Another thing I do want to warn you all about is some of this particular LCD unit. I think it's called a 2004 RepRap is just the generic name for this LCD panel. The rotary encoder skips. It'll double click over on whenever you're going through menus. So it'll, instead of going down one option, it'll go down 2 options sometimes. Besides that, yeah, it's not the greatest. It will work. It'll be fine. You just have to put up with that little idiosyncrasy there, which it can be a bit annoying. Yeah, overall, it's just not a great printer. The frame is terrible. My first printer I had had a frame made out of wood, and there were constant tolerance issues. The thing was shaking itself apart. It's just not, and of course, as it heats up, especially with this heated bed, the bed build platform is wood, which is bad, very bad. And of course, it looks like it's just a PCB bed, which is pretty cheap. So of course, it's all very cheap. This is parts bin stuff. They probably had this crap laying around. They're just trying to sell them off. Yeah, everything is wood. So now that you all have a basic primer to what to look out for, I mean, of course, everything else, the hot end looks good, where this looks fine. Motors, yeah, they're all the same pretty much. These will probably last a while, and separate motors are pretty heavy duty. The electronics are, they're generic. They'll probably last you. They got heat sinks on it at least, but I wouldn't trust that heated bed module there with that tiny little heat sinks on it. Okay, so this one, I believe this was a Kickstarter printer, and they, as per usual with Kickstarter campaigns, they took forever to deliver on this product. And when people got these printers, finally, after years or however long it took them to fulfill, everyone was pretty disappointed. I think Maker Muse like got one of these units, and yeah, he was none too pleased with the performance of it. I think he might have got a review copy, but I can't be 100%. But this is one step in the other direction. This is all plastic frame. There's like little to no metal. It looks like there's some like 8mm shafts. This is a Delta printer. Yeah. So the other one was a Cartesian printer, which is you have all of your axes. You have your X, Y, and Z. Now this one, X, Y, and Z, is like this triangular like configuration where the printer head moves, but nothing, the bed doesn't. Very interesting. It is a cool layout. It's a really good printer form factor if you want to print very large, like vertically high models. Yeah, this one, like I said, the frame is made out of plastic, very thin plastic, as you can tell. No heated bed, so very low on features. It doesn't even look like the thing has an LCD screen, which, yeah, that's another big fail. $160, so just a little bit more expensive. Everything just looks so cheap on this thing. Like, even the wiring's pretty haphazard. Like, the electronics box isn't even connected. It might have a screen, I can't tell. It does not have a mention of a screen. See, of course, they put these models here. That might have been printed by this machine. Just look, as you can tell, like there's a lot of weird like bumps in the surface, so I wouldn't be surprised. Like, this is definitely PLA. It's definitely printed really slow. Like, if you were to buy this thing, it would take forever for things to be printed if you can get them to print correctly, which, yeah, the plastic's gonna flex. You're gonna have a lot of issues with that. You couldn't even try to put a heated bed on this thing. This is one of the A-nets. This is the A-net A8. Now there's also the A6. There are some slight differences. The A8 is a little bit more supported. I haven't really used either of them, but they're both based off of the Prusa i3. The A8's typically cheaper, so it is a decent entry-level budget printer. Now, the frame, first off, it is made out of polycarbonate, so it's definitely a step up from that like just flimsy plastic or wood. This is very thick stuff, so this is definitely like a very good entry-level printer. Also, the bed plates are made out of metal, and it does have a heated bed from what I can tell here. Yeah, it looks like it's like a thicker aluminum heated bed, so pretty good quality on that. The hot end's good. LCD screens, not using the rotary encoder, but is using the same display. The Z-rod system is decent. It looks like it's using 8mm rods, and of course the motors are on the bottom. Typically you want your motors on the bottom on this Cartesian type setup, especially with two-stepper motors, because just the way the binding of the actual lead screws that drive the print head up and down. It has two Z motors, which this particular configuration of printer, you typically want to get two Z motors. You might run into issues if there's only one on one side and none on the other. But yeah, overall decent. Like I said, a good first printer. You're not going to be able to go super fast with this design just because you will get some flex with the frame because it's not as sturdy as like aluminum or steel. But it will work. And for $159, you really cannot beat that. Now, do keep in mind that a lot of these 3D printers, they're for tinkers. Like, you're gonna have to upgrade a lot of stuff to get them to be nice and reliable. If you're going into this thinking that you want to get something that's like a reliable workhorse that's going to print stuff off of you, like if you're just designing models or needing stuff to be printed out and you don't want to have to fuss around with like, or screw around and tinker with the printer, then you're going to want to get something a little more pricier that's already pre-built, like a FlashForge Creator Pro or like something similar. I would steer away from MakerBot because of their proprietary nature, and as well as DaVinci. But let's go ahead and move on to our next printer. So now we have another Delta printer. This is there's a couple names for this. Okay, so this is a Cinestech or EZT3D. There are a bunch of these out here. This is a bit of a hybrid in the frame. We have a polycarbonate top and bottom, but we do have these 2040, it looks like, or 2020 aluminum extrusions, which are very decent. Like I said, again, with the Deltas, these will give you a lot of Z height, which will give you the ability to print tall models, but the bed is rounded, so you will be severely limited in your overall X and Y space. I think it has a heated bed. I could be mistaken. Let's see here. It does have a heated bed, It uses a very common hot end, like it's a E3D V6 clone or V5, so it's easy to upgrade if you do want to get a better hot end for this thing. So there's a lot of good upgrade options for this. Of course, with the aluminum extrusions, you can always, looks like it has some decent size wheels, which is good, and it is tri wheels, so those can be tensioned down pretty easily, so you don't have to worry too much about flexing. Overall, yep, it's a decent, like I said, decent design. The frame should be pretty decent. It's good for like lighter duty printing. You're not going to do stuff like that super duper fast, but it will definitely do you good. And for 156 bucks, this is something I would definitely consider picking up myself if I needed just a cheapy Delta printer. So let's go ahead and move on to the next one. Okay, so this is a lot smaller. Not going to take up a whole lot of space. I think it's like a 6-inch by 6-inch bed size, maybe 6-inch tall or so. So very small. I believe this one does have a heated bed. Never mind, this does not have a heated bed, but it does have an all metal frame. It's using like the 2020 and the 2040 aluminum extrusions, and it does have a nice little LCD screen. It's like a nice little light duty printer. If you want something small, it looks like it's, you could technically be portable if you needed just something on the go, perhaps. Some people may find that useful, or they just need something to stick in this corner and print away. You could just print some little PLA stuff. You could add it on a heated bed and maybe upgrade the electronics or power supply to accept a heated bed. The Tron Z or Tron XY, they're pretty decent little starter printers for sure. They have a lot of decent models going around. Now this one was cheaper earlier. It was around 190 bucks. It shot up to 273 as I am shooting this video. It may go back down. I'm not 100% sure. Definitely an interesting printer. It has a Titan, I believe it's an Aero like knockoff extruder, which they're still pretty decent for the knockoffs. This one's pretty nice. I don't think this one's geared, oh no, never mind. This isn't this is like a MakerBot style one. So I have this one in my current 3D printer, and they're pretty dang reliable. Like, I rarely have issues with this thing. Has decent hardware on it. The LCD, I think it's like a newer, it has like a newer touchscreen type LCD, so pretty neat. Okay, I don't see anything about a heated bed, and I don't think it does based on, it just looks like there's a piece of plexi or some sort of glass down there. But overall, like, it looks pretty decent. Like, if you wanted something that was aesthetically pleasing, it'd be a decent printer to choose out. A little pricey right now. Probably wouldn't pick this up. I'd probably go with the previous Delta we looked at. Everything looks nice and stable. Looks like it has like a polycarbonate top and bottom or some sort of injection molded plastic frame, so it might be alright. I'd probably double check reviews on this, of course. I do want to note out that these printers I haven't really used myself. I'm just kind of giving you my experience since I've been dealing with 3D printers for like over 5 years now. So just my first impressions on these printers. So this may be a good printer. It may be a terrible printer. I'm not sure what this frame is doing, but it is definitely something to look at. It's, something worth researching, at least I would say. Okay, so this is another ANET. There are a jillion other brand names with this as well. This is one of the cheaper ones, so 147 bucks. Really good steal of a deal. The only downside I would say about this printer is there's only one Z motor, and that's to the top. So you'd have to flip it. A lot of people are saying you have to flip it to the bottom from when I was researching this printer and reviews. The good thing about this is it has a solid aluminum extruded frame. And of course, it looks like it does have a heated bed. It's aluminum bed, which is really good. The roller wheel system is pretty decent. It will get you along. Like I said, you may want to eventually get like a second lead screw for second stepper motor lead screw for the Z axis. So that's a little bit more stable and you can go at faster speeds and not have to worry about print quality issues. It has the same sort of LCD that all the other ANETs seem to have. So yeah, for 100 or 4783, you really can't go wrong. Like I said, this is more definitely a tinkerer's printer, so definitely gonna want to go into this, expecting to upgrade a bunch of stuff. Okay, so this is another interesting one here. This is an Flsun brand. It's 170 bucks, a little bit more pricier. It actually has some pretty decent electronics on it. It has a good, decent-ish LCD. Might have the rotary click issue, but for that price, you really can't complain a whole lot. Has a decent bed space. Yeah, one of the pictures looks like it's a 6-inch by 8-inch, but it looks like it's an 8-inch by 8-inch from what I can tell here. The does have one Z motor, but for this particular design, it's okay. You might need to print out some like modifications to get this thing going. But overall, it is decent. That like weird stock, I'm not a huge fan of it, but I have seen a lot of printers use this type of design with some success. So definitely something to keep in mind when you are looking for one of these cheaper 3D printers to buy. It looks like it comes with some nice little goodies like like an automatic Z leveler, which is always a nice little touch for these 3D printers, just to keep everything nice and level with the bed, because Z accuracy is the #1 concern you want to have for buying a 3D printer, because X and Y, they can it's pretty easy for them to be accurate as long as the belts are nice and tight. That's about it, all you have to worry about. But when it comes to Z, it's really hard to keep Z-axis as accurate as it needs to be, because it needs to be super accurate compared to the rest. Alright, we have another Tron Z printer. This one is based off of a popular printer. These are going to be a little bit more expensive than your standard other printers. Well, actually, this one might have dropped down in price a little bit, so around about $200 or so, $190-ish, so a little bit more pricier than the other printers we looked at, besides the BIQU Magician Delta printer we looked at earlier. But this guy is humongous. If you need to print out large things for like cosplay or something special, this is definitely a good deal to consider. One thing you will have to print out there are some mods you'll have to do. The frame isn't the most strongest thing. This is definitely a cheaper version, so they've skimped out, and the rails are a little bit puny. They're 20 by 20 millimeter, which this top one should be about 20 by 40. At least it is on the CR10, which would make it a lot more rigid. So definitely something to consider upgrading in the future, like print out some new Z-axis rails or some Z-axis hardware and what have you. One thing I will warn is that if you don't necessarily need something like this right off the bat, if you're not printing giant things, I would recommend getting a smaller printer if you're just getting started, because it's a bit of a beast to keep a larger printer up and running, especially in terms of reliability. Maintenance is a bit more involved, just because there's a lot more things that are going to come loose or get out of tolerance. With a smaller printer that's more like that's rigidly built, it's a little bit easier to keep it up and running, and not having to worry about things being loose or out of tolerance. But it is a decent little deal. Like I said, not the greatest in terms of like the frame. It's a little skimped, but it'll work pretty decent. And then we're coming down in the next couple here. This one's, I believe it's a little bit pricier here. Yeah, about $211.41. So still pretty budget, but a little bit more pricier than the other options. This is the Flsun. It's a Castle clone, which is just a Delta design that's been going around forever, using these aluminum extruded rails. So solid metal frame. It has these plastic end caps. I believe those are injection molded. This is a pretty tried and true design. Has been around for ages. Has a pretty rudimentary extruder, which it should work. It has a nice little LCD screen, just the El Cheapo rotary dial deal, which it may have that issue with the weird overclicking. But yeah, it has a pretty big heated bed. It is big for a Delta. Let's pull up the measurement here. Yeah, so 240 millimeter print bed size, at least diameter. So of course, circle, you're going to lose your edges. And then a 285 millimeter height, which is pretty substantial. It's not super huge, actually. Yeah, okay. So a little smaller than the smaller pulley one, which I don't think is available. Might have been, I think it might be like a newer version or something weird. This is a really, really decent printer. If you want to spend a little bit more bucks, and if you're looking for something that prints taller models and does it pretty quick, which is another advantage of the Delta, because the head of the print head is very lightweight, since the stepper motor is not attached to it. So you will be able to get pretty decent performance gains, or pretty decent speeds at least. And then finally, this is a little bit pricier than the Tron Z version, but this is pretty much an exact copy of the Creality CR10. It has the beefier 2040 extrusions on the sides and the Z-axis, so it's going to be a lot more rigid. I believe this one has, it has dual stepper motors. It has a huge print size, 300 millimeter square on the bed and 400 millimeter on the Z height. So that is huge. So if you're printing big stuff, this is one of the printers I would recommend going with here. $238, you really cannot go wrong. I I'm really contemplating picking up one of these guys. There are some weird reliability issues with, I think, the hot end like jams, but if you're willing to work around that and try to fix that yourself, you can get away with a steal of a really good deal. It is based off the CR10, so there's a lot of parts, already on Thingiverse, a lot of improvements and mods that are ready to go to be set up or printed out or installed on your printer. So that's really going to be about it for this particular video. I hope this shed some light and help people that are looking to get into 3D printers or buying more 3D printers that don't want to spend a whole lot of money or looking for a good budget route. So, these are definitely some printers to consider, at least researching. Definitely, like I said, I'm not really selling any of these printers to y'all or endorsing them. If you all like this video, go ahead and hit that like button, consider subscribing and all that good stuff, and yeah, have a great day.